Hi, Juani.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Oh, great. What about you? You good?
Yeah, pretty good, pretty good.
Where are you now?
We are in London, United Kingdom, London, England. Yeah,
London, England. Okay. There is another
yeah.
London that we don't know, actually.
What's that?
There is another London that we don't know somewhere else in the world.
Actually, there is. Actually, there's another
Oh,
London.
oh,
There's a
really?
London in Canada, London, Ontario. Yeah,
Oh,
there you go.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, nice to know.
Yes.
The reason I know this is because I worked with one of my friends from a Canadian guy in Singapore. He was from London, Ontario.
Okay.
So
It
there you
was
go.
there was quite a problem when you're from London. Oh, me too, from London. But then
Yeah,
we couldn't find each other.
like what London? Yeah, yeah. No, the real London, the real.
Okay.
The bigger one, not the real one, the bigger one,
The big
because
one.
London, Ontario is pretty tiny, yeah. So
Okay, Juani, tell us a little bit about you, like where you're from, what you do, where you've been in the world, because we know a couple of things already, but guys don't know.
yeah. So I am originally from Buenos Aires in Argentina, and let me see. Right now, I've been a senior animator at ILM for almost 6.5 years. I've been in London for 3.5 years. Prior to this, I worked in Singapore, ILM Singapore, where I was there for 3 years. And before that, I was in New Zealand at Weta Digital for 5 years. And in total in New Zealand, I was in New Zealand for like 11 years. I worked at Weta Productions also. Um, Weta Productions was like the TV department, not TV like we know today, like TV like streaming, the real TV
Hmm.
like more fast paced. I was there before I went, yeah, into Weta Digital for another year and a half. I basically spent, I mean, like I'm going backwards, but if I had to go from Argentina, I left Argentina to pursue a career in animation, and that led me first to my studies, where I studied. This is the '90s. This is a long time ago, and I went from Argentina, from Buenos Aires to New York, where I did 2D animation. From there on, I moved to Vancouver. That was like an introductory course, which was really cool, 6 months. And then I went to Vancouver. In the meantime, I came back to Argentina, grabbed my stuff, and I went to Vancouver. And well, I applied first to Vancouver Film School, and they accepted me. So it was a bit of a tough one. This is pre-internet time, so very interesting. And from there on, I wanted to do 2D animation. I wanted to be a 2D animator, knowing obviously that in the mid '90s, with all the Jurassic Park and Terminator and all that stuff that was starting to come out, things were kind of changing, and Toy Story, obviously. I just wanted to learn animation very well, basically. And since I could draw, I tried to first. I was self-taught, and I decided to, maybe, since I was going to go study to this very prestigious school called Vancouver Film School
Hmm.
in Vancouver, I thought maybe I'd take the opportunity to not rush things and get into the computer world, and I might as well be taught how to draw once and for all, because I had no idea. And I did that for a year, and then I did another year of 3D animation after that in Vancouver Film. So I did a 2-year program, and then after that, I got a job in Canada. Luckily, it wasn't as easy as it sounds, but maybe we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
Some things happen. And then after that, I mean, basically what inspired me to go to New Zealand is I saw Lord of the Rings, and something clicked, and I'm like, I need to go there. I need to work in that place. And which is also kind of connected to ILM, which kind of created the industry. So it's an interesting story, but. So I basically got a small job, knowing I wouldn't go work to Weta Digital immediately, because it,
Hmm.
it just doesn't happen. I mean, especially when you're a junior. They're like, "Hey, I'm a junior. I want to go work in Lord of the Rings." Okay, come over. It's like, no, that never comes.
We were waiting for you. Where were you till
Yes,
now?
yeah, dude, we were so waiting for you. Yeah, no, it doesn't happen like that. At least not to me. And so I started very small, in a very small studio in New Zealand, Kuhu Studios. It was a very, very eye-opening experience. I was so determined that I didn't. If they told me you have to go to Mars, I'm like, yeah, let's go. Which shuttle do I take? It's like, oh, you have to go to Siberia. It's like, yeah, let's go. You know, I don't care. Wherever,
How old
I don't care.
how old were you at the moment?
How old was I? I was your age. I was 24, 20, 20, 24, 24.
Okay.
After having finished studying at 24. 24. I'm 44, so there you go, 20 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, 20 years. Yeah,
Exactly 20 years ago, yeah. And after that, you know, I went to Australia, which was awesome, for a year in the Gold Coast. And all this time I worked in TV. I never worked in movies, you know. So TV, and I mean TV, like fast paced, you know, 1 minute a week, kind of a lot of footage, a lot of animation a week. Crappy TV, you know, direct to DVD. It was mainly direct to DVD. What is DVD? Like, what? That's like so old, you know. Direct to DVD TV shows, a series, not TV shows, yeah, series, TV, yeah. So you had to animate a lot, you know. It was either that or commercials, and I just really, you know, commercials, you kind of have to be a generalist, and I've never been a generalist, so I kind of focused more on animation. I wanted to focus more on animation so I could eventually get that job, the big job at, you know, Weta, ILM, you know, the big studios in animation. Although, you know, you obviously know a little bit of this and that, but mainly, you know, 90% of it was animation. So, so yeah, there I went to the Gold Coast to work in this TV show, which was huge, biggest show done in Australia at the time. At the same time, this was at the same time that Happy Feet, you know, was happening. I had a few interviews with Animal Logic, you know, and my visas kept falling through. I had interviews with, well, I was in New Zealand. I had interviews with Tippett Studios, DreamWorks, visas, down. So I'm like, God, because I didn't have New Zealand citizenship. So if I did have it back then, I could have gone maybe to Happy Feet, and then that maybe would have helped me get to where I am faster. Maybe not. I don't know, really.
Oh, we'll never know.
So at the end of the day, you know, there's this saying in English, you know, beggars can't be choosers, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you
about
have
that.
No.
You didn't know that one?
No, didn't know that.
Beggar, you understand it, right?
Actually, not. What's
Okay,
the meaning of it?
Beggars can be choosers. When you have nothing, anything they give to you, you take it.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
It's a very good saying, you know, and it is very true, by the way. It's very, very true. So I kind of, you know, even in Vancouver, I remember when I was kind of, you know, sorry, I was about to finish animation, my animation degree in Vancouver Film School, and my friends there, you know, I was studying with all these Americans and Canadians, and you ask them, you know, back in the days, like, so where do you want to work? It's like, I want to work in Pixar, I want to work in DreamWorks. That's what they were saying. And it's like, what about you? It's like, I'll just clean the bathrooms of wherever they let me in, man. You know, it's like, I'll do whatever, you know. I can't choose because, like, they're never going to hire me because I'm not from the country, I have no experience, you know, and those were my first baby steps into the industry. So I was just kind of willing to do whatever, you know, whatever it takes, you know, kind of like what Captain America told Tony Stark, you know, whatever it takes. I just saw Avengers again the other day. It's so great, amazing. So I was willing to do that, man. So, you know, I kept getting the TV jobs, which were great. They don't pay as well as, you know, the movie industry kind of, you know, shows, but, you know, it kept me going. I always kept, you know, telling myself, it's like the moment you feel like you're going backwards, I was going to go back to Argentina. If I ever felt like I was moving backwards, I was like, that's it, you know, throw the towel, go back home with my family, whatever. And I had a few of those, and I didn't throw the towel, actually. So that was good.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, because I had a few moments where in the small studio, they basically for a year and a half, they had no money. They had no money because they were into debt, and they owed a lot of money. So every time I got paid, every few months, it was really bad. But I guess the positive side of this was they had work, and the work was good. They just had a lot of debt. So if they didn't have work, I wouldn't have stayed there, of course. But at the same time, the work they had was good, and I saw a possibility, an opportunity. It's like, well, the work that they're doing is good, you know? If I can make the most of this, and maybe this will take me somewhere else. And that's how I keep seeing every opportunity, you know, trying to make the most out of, you know, of the opportunities that they gave me. And eventually that took me to Weta Productions, you know, and eventually that kind of was a big step, and that kind of avoided me going back to Argentina, basically.
Mhm.
So anyway, and then went to Australia, great opportunity, and then I went back to New Zealand, still in TV, and it's just there's a lot of really cool projects happening, and I really thought I could really learn a lot from all this stuff. So and after that, I mean, I can maybe go into more detail later on, but after trying for many years, I got to New Zealand 2002. And I got into Weta Digital 2010, like December 2009. So
Okay.
that's
That's a lot of.
That's a
like
lot of
8
time.
years.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a long way around to Weta. And after that, we had great time, 5 years there, intense years. And after a while, I think we were ready for a change. I mean, I met my wife in Wellington, and Weta was great. It was very intense. And after a while, like companies started knocking on the door. You're at Weta for after Lord of the Rings and Avatar. Weta was like the biggest thing, and so people, I guess recruiters and people in the industry see that you're in a studio for a long time, and like, oh, he can definitely, he's been there for a long time. That's reflects very well on any artist,
Yeah.
And so I started getting these job offers, which I mean, I love New Zealand. I ended up getting New Zealand citizenship, which is awesome. And but I've never been to Europe,
Mm.
So I kept getting these opportunities, and then I got a really cool job offer in ILM, but it was in Singapore, which wasn't the one that I exactly wanted to go to, but at the same time, I knew that because I had friends working there, that I knew that the projects they were doing were the same that San Francisco was doing, so that I knew a lot of it was going to be a big jump. So we decided to take that. We needed a change after being in New Zealand for like so long. New Zealand is great, but it's a tiny island, very far away from everything. So with my wife, she kind of helped me decide to kind of, and obviously, the big thing that made me go into the industry was ILM and was Jurassic Park, in 1993. So it was a long way around to get to ILM, which I wanted to get to before, but I applied and they turned me down a few times because I had they liked my stuff, but it,
things.
yeah, it wouldn't work. The sponsoring wouldn't work. It was very hard to get into the United States. Now it's even harder, of course, but so I had to find another way of achieving this goal, without knowing where that was. Like, I just wanted to get better. Wherever that led me, it's like, let's go. It doesn't matter because when you're doing things well, good things happen, right? So I thought it doesn't matter. I'm just going to go for it, and whatever happens, happens. And wherever I find myself here from 20 years, hopefully it's a good place. I know I'll do my best. 150%. Hopefully that's enough. And so I did, and then after 3 years in Singapore was great. It was tough, different culture to what we were used to, and but it was a good change. It was a necessary change at the moment, and looking back, it was awesome. Met a lot of amazing people, of course, and worked in the funny story is, like, they hired me in ILM Singapore to work on Jurassic Park, which was the same thing that got me into the industry. So that was like
went
full
back
circle.
in time about changing the place. Okay, good.
Weird, right? Yeah. I worked on the first Jurassic World, the reboot of the franchise. Of course. I was super nervous.
Why?
Because ILM, is ILM, dude. It's the dream, man. It was. I mean, what was a dream also, but it was the dream that got you into to the industry, and coming from, I mean, ILM and Weta are great. They're both different studios, so both have different sensibilities and ways of working. So you get nervous,
Yeah.
But it was awesome. And after a while there, they asked me if I wanted to go to London because they needed more senior guys there. And London studio was growing a lot because it's like basically where all the movies kind of are shot. And the studio was growing a lot, and they need a lot of seniors. And I'm like, well, I've never been to Europe. Neither did my wife. So it's like, why not? And we decided, since we don't have kids, it's obviously easier to travel, and we decided to jump on the opportunity, and here we are.
And did she follow you for what? I don't know when you got married, but
we met in New Zealand.
Oh, then
In New Zealand, well, we met in actually tomorrow is going to be 8 years, 9 years,
Oh.
9 years. Yeah, we met in 2012.
Okay. Tomorrow is
2012. Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Tomorrow is
Happy
going to be 9
anniversary.
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like the first, like I say, the first 11 years of my life, I was by myself.
Okay.
Which a lot of people ask me. It's like, I mean, leaving the comfort of your family and your home is not everyone dreams about it, but when the opportunity arrives, you're like, oh my god, what do I do now? People, it's always better, I guess, psychologically, if you know that you're going to be with someone to endure it, because in some way, you leave your family, and this is pre, this is pre iPhone, so there was no like WhatsApp and FaceTime and there's nothing, there was nothing. So you really were alone, like really, really were alone. You just had email if you had a computer, which I didn't. And so in many ways, I tell, people, guys and girls, if you want to, it's always better to do the first years by yourself, because you're not kind of tied. Moving around by yourself is easier,
Mm.
And if you want to, succeed in whatever, in the industry and whatever, sometimes the opportunity you're looking for is not going to be where you want it to be, but somewhere else, So you can't really fall in love the same way you can't fall in love in what we do with your work. You can fall in love with a city or whatever, but know that you may have to leave it because either the contract ends or another opportunity shows up somewhere else. It happens in many things, and more so in this industry. Definitely more so in this industry.
Okay.
So yeah. So we met in New Zealand. We met in New Zealand, and the first few years was by myself. So that's why I traveled so much, to trying to get the experience, and settling into the industry, and then we met, and we've been together since 2012, literally almost. And tomorrow, 9 years. And she was the one that we met in New Zealand. She's from Mexico, and she basically, at one point, I had, like I say, I traveled so much, and like I love New Zealand. I wanted to buy a house there, and she loved New Zealand also, and it's like I didn't really want to leave New Zealand because it was the hardest thing to do. But you got a really cool opportunity to go work for ILM. I'm like, man, I am so tired. I don't want to move anymore. I just want to buy a house, buy a car, and just chill, whatever. And but like I say, change was needed. Change was needed back then, and when I left in 2014, when I left Weta. So I kind of swallowed my pride, and she basically kind of helped me realize it's just a good opportunity. It wasn't, the hardest option is not the road you want to go down with. You want to go the easier version, but that's why, because the hardest one is at the end probably even the best way to go.
Yeah.
But easy is always good, but easy doesn't get you anywhere, unfortunately. So we decided to get to that, to take this opportunity, and so we packed and we left, and then after that again to London. So yeah, hopefully, I think for now we're not gonna move a lot, although you never know. We're always open to I mean, definitely loving ILM, and we want to stay here, but like, ILM has other studios. They might, so maybe an opportunity, shows up to go somewhere else, and you're like, you determine at the moment, do you want to do this or do you want to stay here? What do you want to do in that moment in time? So there's a lot of things that kind of weigh on that, on those decisions at the moment. Yeah. So.
But she's into the industry.
Sorry?
Your wife is into the industry, or she's doing something?
No.
Okay, okay.
Just one person. One person is okay. What's that?
She followed you, so
Yeah. No, she was. I mean, she's great because she. I mean, at the same time, it's a what better way to know the world? And this is something that I tell people. It's like, what better way to get to know the world with having a job in different parts of the world? It's one thing going to holidays. Going on holidays for 20 days. I don't know, to Brazil, whatever, or if you're from somewhere, but you don't really get to know. I mean, you relax, you have a great time, yes, but it's not the same as living there. You get to really experience the cultures and the people and get to know everything. So that's kind of cool. So and she kind of she was she saw the chance, and I told her and it was great. It's an eye opener. It helps you mature, man.
Yeah, that's true.
I tell everyone back home and people in general, like be open to other opportunities, because like it's not about just the professional side of things. It's about everything else that comes with it. The being in a completely different environment. Maybe being in a if you go to Asia, maybe they're not going to speak your language. Or being in a foreign country. So the effort you have to do mentally, physically, and psychologically has a lot of pros and cons, right? So you get to know yourself better than you would have known yourself if you didn't do any of this. So I decided to leave Argentina to basically see what I was made of, because it's very easy to hang out with your family and your friends and always do the same stuff. But what happens when they remove you from there and they put you somewhere else and you're completely by yourself?
Yeah, that's
what happens then, So you basically have to reinvent yourself, So that was the main thing, I think. Yeah, trying to reinvent yourself and in every different place that you go to, I think. And that teaches you basically the most important lesson I've learned is like I got to know myself, how much I was willing to put on the line to achieve what I wanted,
Mm-hmm.
how much I was willing to give away, stuff like that, to achieve the ultimate goal. So that, it's good and bad, like everything else, The ups are really good. The lows are horrible.
Yeah.
Trust me. Yeah, because you're by yourself and you're like, why does no one call me? What, my friends? And they don't know what happens if you don't tell them, and like I said, we didn't have any of this. So
That's true.
It's my birthday, everyone's gonna call me, and then no one calls you and you're like, why is no one calling me? It's like, so it's interesting. It's very interesting stuff.
How do you feel about having to send? Because you said before that your first job you had to send. No, not the first job. Your first experience in Vancouver, you had to send your paper because you didn't have internet, so you had to sign something and then go to the post.
The portfolio.
Oh yeah, for Vancouver.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was interesting because we didn't have, there was no such. I mean, the internet was there, but we didn't have. YouTube didn't exist, basically. And Vimeo either, LinkedIn either, nothing existed, nothing.
Yeah.
So you basically, I swear to God, I have a copy of all this stuff in my little portfolio. I had a very nice little portfolio, some drawings, and you basically, printed. You had VHS tapes that you bought, and you basically made a marketing campaign out of yourself, and you put it in a thing, and you send it to the studios, and it was kind of cool. Way more effort than what it is today. Today you send an email, here's my link, here's my video, boom, done. Boom.
How many did you send? How many did you send?
That?
Like how many portfolios did you send like this? Just
Oh
one?
my gosh. Well, I mean, no. I sent a bunch. And that's the other thing. I basically for me, when you don't have the luxury of a visa, of the possibility of staying in a country where you want to stay, because there's a big industry like Vancouver or the States back in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000, you have to start looking before, because there's a visa expiration. So if your visa expires, you have to get out of the country. If not, you're going to be deported, basically. So I basically had to work harder to finish my film sooner so I could send it to the studios before I got kicked out of the country. So that's what I did, and I had a few interviews with Mainframe at the moment. Mainframe was a big one in Vancouver. They were doing Reboot and all that stuff. Radical Entertainment, EA. Vancouver was not what it is today. Vancouver back then had 3 or 4 studios, and then Bardell that did all the 2D stuff, So I sent maybe 1 or 2 smaller ones. I interviewed with all of them, and they both kind of liked. They kind of all liked my work. Was okay. My demo reel was not great. It was actually pretty bad compared to what students have today. It was crap. I would have never got hired with that same demo reel. Never, ever.
Nice
ever.
to know.
And but being there is everything, and attitude is another important thing. So they saw potential, but some of them wouldn't want to sponsor me. They couldn't sponsor me because they had to sponsor me, and I had no experience. But Bardell kind of in the end was a very funny thing. But I sent a few reels here and there, and Bardell kind of liked me, and then they hired me. So yeah, I sent maybe 10 reels, 10 reels, yeah. 10 big things. It had a portfolio, a VHS tape, and something, my CV, and a cover letter. All that stuff in one little package, beautifully packaged. And you sent it by the post.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was different. Yeah.
And how many, like, you sent 10, okay, of those, and you had to wait for an answer. Like, they sent you a post back, right?
Yeah. No. Yeah. How
How did it work?
I don't remember how that happened. I mean, how did they get in touch with me? I think this was like in the year 2000, so this is a long time ago. Yeah. Sorry, 2001. They contacted me. I think they were interviewing a bunch of people from Vancouver Film School. Yeah, basically, no, okay. I remember now. So basically, I went to this interview on a Friday, or I think it was a Friday, right after finishing before my visa expired, right after finishing my degree. And I had a few months, basically 2 months till my visa expired. And I went to the interview with the supervisors, and I thought the interview went pretty well. I thought the interview went really, really well. And, I went back home, and I had nothing to do because I had finished my studies. I was just kind of basically interviewing to see what was happening. If not, if the day got to the day that I had to leave, I was going to go back. And then, it was winter in Vancouver, super rainy. And I remember, I woke up on Monday, and I'm just kind of looking at the ceiling because I had no TV, and I had no computer, I had nothing basically. And this is not an exaggeration. I had nothing. It's just a mattress on the floor. And that was it. I lived in Vancouver. I literally almost I even slept a few times in Vancouver Film School because you spend so much time there. And I'm like, I thought that interview went pretty well. I'm just gonna go check to see, because I have nothing to do. Maybe they need some help, because I knew they needed help because I had some friends that were working there, and they told me, yeah, but they needed help, but they couldn't hire anyone yet. So because the budget was not yet approved. So I went there, and the guys were like, "What are you doing here? Like, you're not supposed to be here, man." And they're like, "Yeah, no, yeah, I know, yeah." But I told them, you know what? I thought the interview went pretty well, and I think you guys need some help, and I could help you guys because I have nothing to do. And they're like, "It's like, what? You can't do this." So they're like, "Yep, here I am. Do you need help, or do you not need help?" And they're like, "But we can't pay you." And they're like, "Yeah, it doesn't matter. You don't have to pay me. I mean, and they're like, "Okay, wait a minute." And they kind of went back together, talking. And they're like, they came back to me, and they're like, "Yeah, we thought your interview was pretty good, and we liked you. So, I mean, if you don't mind us not paying you, And I told her at the minute I was kind of doing my visa to you could stay there if you had a visa, and I was kind of doing it. If you got a job offer, to stay in Vancouver, immigration would give you a visa. So I told them, look, I finished. All I need is a job offer, and if you guys are happy with me after a few weeks and want to give me a job offer, I'll take it. But in the meantime, maybe I can help you guys." And they're like, "Okay, go sit over there with that guy over there." And I just basically went very friendly. I'm like, "Look, I thought the interview went really well, and I know that you guys are looking for people. I can maybe help you right now until you can start paying people for this project." And they thought it was very gutsy, and luckily the interview had gone well, so
Yeah.
win-win.
Well, yes. You made your first movie, actually. You don't know, but that seems like a movie.
Yeah.
A movie.
There's a lot of things that happen. But that was a flash show. That was the first flash show ever done. It was called Mucha Lucha. and it was fun. It was very, if you Google it, it's pretty funny. And they were supposed to hire me as an animator. They hired me as a layout artist, and which in many ways doing the Flash stuff was better, because in Flash, I don't know if you guys worked in Flash, but we basically had to build the poses for the animators to kind of animate, in between. So we had to pose the characters in all these really cool poses, and that taught me a lot about posing, so it was very interesting. And then I animated a few shots here and there, and that was really cool. So anyway, every job, everything teaches you something. So yeah, that was it.
And you have always dreamed of, you always wanted to work as an animator, right? You said from the beginning, like you did it in 2D and then you moved to 3D. One thing I'm curious about, because we had different opinions on this depending on different people we interviewed also. Did you fall in love with animating itself or with the end result of what came out from animating a character or anything, actually?
The process is tough. It's very, very tough. It can be rewarding sometimes, but you're down in the trenches with all these people, and you're kind of on the same boat, and you make these friendships, and I do love animation, and I know, and what I do, but I do love the process. The final result, if you work for the big studios, is always going to be awesome. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what I told, in my opinion, the movies, whether the movie is successful or not, it's not our problem. It doesn't matter. It's like, you worked on this movie. Sometimes I tell friends of mine, you worked on this movie, and they're like, sorry, I didn't like it. It's like, I don't care. I didn't direct it. It's not my movie. What I tell them is, did you like it visually? What did you think? And they're like, oh, it was amazing. That's it. That's all I care about.
Mm-hmm.
So outputting amazing things and inspiring people to do that stuff, that's what I remember the most, going to the theater and watching those dinosaurs, and you're like, how is this even possible, or you look at, I guess there's even Gollum, you're watching the theaters like, how in the hell is this, like, how is this, like, how, I want to know, or you see Optimus Prime and Transformers, all that stuff. You're like, oh my God, how, Yes. And that's what drives you to do animation, That's the magic. That's what I think.
Yeah.
It's the process, and when you realize you can do that stuff, it's like maybe, I do a lot of sports, and when you tell, or whatever it is you do, it could be sports, could be anything, ballet, could be anything. And you're like, you don't know, we're never born knowing how to do these things. We kind of built slowly into that, to what we do, you don't really just learn how to play. You don't become Roger Federer overnight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Federer wasn't Roger Federer, Messi wasn't Messi overnight, Everyone slowly becomes who they are by understanding what they do and getting better at it. We all start somewhere, and where we start is in zero. Everyone starts the same place. Unless you're Leonardo da Vinci, maybe, because we will never know.
I don't know. We will.
Like your book. But you know what I mean? No one is born with like knowing everything. A lot of people are born with some gifts. Yes. I went to school like in 2D animation, where these guys were like, I remember getting to Vancouver Film School when I did 2D. And these are my friends, and they showed you their portfolios, and you're like, this guy is like a Da Vinci, he's a Donatello. He's like, these guys are the best artists I've ever seen. I'm like, what am I doing here? I am the worst. I don't even know anything, But that's good, because they push you, to become better. So we're, I really deviated from your question, by the way, but I do that a lot. But I think it's the whole process, and at the end result, when you finish and, all the pain is gone and all the long hours are gone, you go to theater and, you're like, yeah, we did that, man. That's great, So, and you're ready for the next one after a break. Sometimes a long break, sometimes a short break, but it's always good to take a break if you can. Yeah.
And you started as a 2D animator, and
well, I never got to do 2D. That's the thing, because when I got into animation, that's when 3D was starting. Like Toy Story had just come out,
Okay.
And
Okay.
it was like, you know, when they're looking for gold back in the 30s or where it's like, oh, there's gold, let's go get some gold. You know, gold
Yeah.
was 3D animation basically, you know.
Okay.
And but everyone, you know, no one had gold back in the day, so people still kind of, you know. So I wanted to be a 2D animator, but I didn't know. I kind of saw the industry kind of starting to, you know, there was 2D animation and there was kind of 3D, and it was kind of slowly starting to go, you know, more
Yeah.
3D. But obviously, you know, people's like, 3D is never gonna get that good. Like it looks like really robotic and, you know, very rigid, which it was. But obviously, technology advanced and it allowed for all those things, you know. So I would have loved to work in 2D animation because that was my dream. But by the time I got into the industry, there was no more 2D almost. The only studios that did 2D were Disney and DreamWorks. And you really, it's like you're playing, like, it's like going to play tennis with Federer, you know, playing football with Ronaldo. It's impossible.
Yeah.
It was never gonna happen. At least for me, it was never gonna happen. And so I'm like, you know, whatever. I just need to get a job and, you know, see where that takes me, basically. So that's what I did. Yeah.
Nice.
Hmm.
If you would say today, like you went around the world, you tried a lot of things, different movies, different TV shows, whatever. You tried all kind. Can you say you tried all kind of animations, or
Yeah. I mean, I try, you know, not all, but I mean, I try to, like, I've worked on, you know, I worked on TV shows, I worked on advertising, I worked on movies, I worked with mocap, 2D, Flash. I tried a lot of things. Yeah,
okay,
definitely. Yeah, you know. So I guess I never did manga anime, Japanese animation, you know.
okay,
But that's
yeah,
all 2D. So you know,
yeah,
I'm like I say, I'm not the most experienced guy in the world, but I have worked, you know, in a bunch of different studios where they did very diverse projects. Yeah. So yeah.
And today, like when you started, your dream was to work, for example, at Weta and then to ILM and at different, kind of movies and different kind of effects, animations. What would you say is your dream today that you're at this point?
That's a good question. My dream today is basically continue where I am, man. You know, I want to continue doing animation. I definitely want to stay in ILM. If you ask me today, like for like it's just proving myself that I have what it takes to do the job. You
Yeah.
know, when they throw an impossible shot at you, you're like,
Yeah.
oh my god, like I am gonna get fired today. You know, and and maybe not today, but in a week when they realize I can't do this.
That's it. That's how it ends.
Yeah, this is how it ends. This is how it ends. You know? And so challenging myself, with every different kind of project that ILM, has. Same at Weta, is the big studios is kind of like that. I would say, obviously, I love ILM and I love their philosophy. I love the studio. I like the way they conduct themselves. It's just a very nice place, and definitely I would like to stay in ILM. And if whatever comes with it, I'll take it. I know that I want to stay with ILM because the future is very bright and very challenging. And like I say, from day one, it was always about the challenge. It's always about the day you're not challenged anymore. The day you're just kind of bored is the day you're like, what do I do now? It's like why do I even wake up?
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? I think it's always good in whatever you do if you have a challenge, Yeah. And I remember now that I'm talking about this, a very good friend of mine when I was at Weta, when I got the job offer in ILM, and I'm like, I was so scared, and I didn't want to leave Weta because it took me a long time to get there also, and I achieved the dreams. Like, yeah, working at Weta was awesome, and I'm like, why would I leave it now and go somewhere else to start again from zero? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And he told me, look, that if you're not scared, then the dream is not big enough. If you're not scared of going that way, then it means there's no reason,
Yeah.
So all those things you're scared of doing are the things you need to do because are the ones that in the end are going to be the more rewarding in the long term.
Yeah.
Like what I told you before, why would you settle with easy? Because easy gets no one nowhere. It's easy and it's great, but then you're like, wow, that was easy, What have I learned? Not much. I don't know,
Yeah.
So I always went the hard way. Because not because I chose to, because that's the situation that I had to go around being, having made the decisions that I made. No one forced me to be there. I made those decisions,
Yeah.
And I guess, because I like it, and I like challenges, and I like to prove to myself that I can do things that I didn't know at the moment, But I know it's like, maybe I don't know this today, but what if I really invest myself in this for like, I don't know, 3-4 years, And being alone helped me a lot because I had no distractions. Positives and negatives. You're by yourself, It's not easy. The balance is the tough part,
Yeah, it depends on what you want in the end. Like, if you think you want to
So,
get better.
like I say, my buddy Simo told me, it's like, if you're not scared, then that dream is not big enough. When you're terrified, then it means you have to drop everything you're doing and go for it, Yeah, so.
Counterintuitive, but definitely deep one. A deep one.
Yeah, it's like I say, and why don't people really go for these things? Because, like, the most common question is, well, and this is something I get all the time when people want to do these things. It's like, but what happens if I don't get there? And I tell them, but what happens if you do?
That's true. What happens?
What happens if you do? Trust me, if you're there and if you're fighting and, like, putting yourself out there, chances are you will get there. Not immediately, but you will get there. You just have to invest yourself in it, man. You just got to sacrifice, work hard, and you will get there. That's it. But it's the sacrifices that people are afraid to do. And mainly, this whole thing is, being a junior, you're like, oh, but there's no jobs out there. It's like, no, not exactly. There's a lot of jobs out there, but, you just have to maybe think outside of the box, and take the jobs that maybe people wouldn't want to take. But, you might not get to ILM in, 2 years, but you might get there in 5 years, but you're going to be a different person. You're going to have learned a lot of things in the meantime,
Yeah, in 5 years,
I've
probably.
gone the other way around,
You know different things. You're you're matured. You know.
Exactly. And you learn, and when you're in these jobs, you meet all sorts of people that maybe you meet people that have worked in ILM and they can mentor you there. I met a guy that worked, when I went back to New Zealand, this guy who worked in Disney animation in Australia, and he kind of I basically forced him to become a mentor, like my mentor. I had to force him because he didn't want to, he wanted to be art director in this small studio again that I worked in, the same studio. And I told him, no, you're going to teach me how to animate very well. You work at Disney. And the guy, like, we became, like, we're like super good friends, man. And the guy, I pestered him so much. Like, basically, he's like, hey, Mike, what do you think of this? What do you think of this, Mike? I sent him my animations, like, dude, I'm busy. I need to draw. It's like, I don't care. Give me feedback, And then basically he's like, okay, I'm going to become animation director. And he became animation director. But, you may have the luck of going to a studio in the middle of nowhere, and some, maybe there's a guy that used to work at Disney who left Disney because he wanted to go back to his country, and maybe he's in that studio. That happened. Why can't it happen anywhere else? So you never know. You never know until, like I say, you never know until you're there. So the only way to find out is by taking the chance.
I'm thinking that today we have a lot of possibilities to get in touch with a lot of artists. We
Yes.
get a lot of feedback. Like you said before, you wanted the feedback because you want to get better, and you wanted him to mentor you, even if he didn't want to. But actually, today we have more possibility to get in touch with people. But it's like we are afraid of doing that. It's like we met a lot of people, and we ourselves, you start by making yourself problems and contacting someone else because you don't want to bother them, because you don't want to they are busy. But in the end, we are all people, and we actually found that a lot of artists are here to help, are here to keep the
a lot of people, because like I told you, man, none of us are born knowing everything. We all get there after, some people get there sooner, some people get there later. But people, yes, there's some people that don't maybe or can't help, don't want to. I don't know. It's up to the person maybe you contact. Maybe you have bad luck and you contact the guy that maybe never replies to you. I always reply to anyone. That's why I'm here with you today, right? So there's a lot of really cool people, and they want to help out people that are in. But if you never try, like I told you, man, you'll never know. So if someone doesn't respond, look for him in LinkedIn. I mean, you have to have role models or people you admire the same way I maybe admired, Glenn Keane, but I know Glenn Keane was never gonna, give me feedback, But there's people in the industry that you can reach out to. There's a lot. You can just go on LinkedIn, and it's so easy, And a lot of these people are very cool and very open, and they're willing to help people, achieve their dreams, basically, which is to be where they are at the moment. ILM Frame Store, so Weta, et cetera, So, you lose nothing trying. That's the thing. You can't really give up unless you try.
Yeah.
So reach out to someone. If it doesn't answer, reach out to another person, and basically, just see what what kind of responses you get. It's the only way to learn. You got to put yourself out there. If you're afraid of kind of failure, then you're never gonna go anywhere, basically, because failure is just right around the corner. So you gotta put yourself out there, and sometimes you're gonna fail, but those things are gonna teach you very, very valuable lessons.
Yeah.
So at least that's what I experienced.
Yeah.
But people are nice. Most of the artists in these companies, they're nice people, and they wanna even some of them like feel like it's a really cool opportunity to see how much they know in helping people that are super junior. You know what I mean? So like, I've learned, maybe if I go to dailies, I've learned this. Maybe let's see what I can do. Maybe I can help this guy become better. Let's see how good I am. That's a good way of, testing yourself. So I'm not saying everyone's going to be able to do that, but some people are definitely willing to. And I would, suggest younger people, younger artists, definitely not be afraid of going on LinkedIn. And obviously what I do suggest is, if you're going to reach out to artists or in animation or whatever it is they want to, it's like, maybe, see what they've done, because if like you message them, it's like, hey, so what have you done? I'm like, dude, you have like, LinkedIn, you have this, I mean, study, it's like, I've done this. Oh, I've seen you worked here and I really like this, at least show that you care, It's the same way if you're going to be applying to a studio, you have to know what they've done. You're like, oh, ILM. Oh yeah. ILM, what have they done? What does ILM mean? You're like, you're never gonna get hired. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it did start pretty well.
Yeah. So you have to do your homework. You have to do your homework. If you're gonna get someone to help you, you have to see what that person has done. There's probably some reel somewhere, and that means you're invested and that you're showing interest, and that really helps. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But sometimes it's just feel a little bit uncomfortable for a junior to reach out to someone.
It was never comfortable leaving my family, but guess what?
Yeah,
true.
Here you go.
Yeah. Something
like I say, if you're getting uncomfortable, you have to get out of the comfort zone. That's exactly what happened to me. The day I stepped on the plane leaving Argentina, I knew I wasn't ever gonna go back. And that, you know how much weight that has on you?
Oh, yeah.
The life that I knew does not exist anymore. Is that uncomfortable? What is that? It's tragic. It's not uncomfortable. But I knew it. But if you have other objectives in mind, then it's it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
If you choose one thing, you're giving up other things.
Yeah.
So you cannot have everything. And it's very easy to say, oh, I'm shy. I'm uncomfortable. Well, man, like, maybe
it's not for everybody.
Yeah, toughen up, at least, it's not the word. There's worse things in life, so I would suggest people just try and, reach out and not be shy, because you're not, reaching out to the prime ministers, or you're just reaching out people. We're people, so, yeah.
What if I could ask you a question about, now that you went through all your career, what could be that thing that if you knew before, like when you started, would change everything, or would really boost you or help you get through your career now?
We just keep this one for last because we know that it's a hard one.
I mean, I think, the one thing. Okay, I mean, it kind of ties up everything because there's not really one thing. The way I went around it, people may have a different answer,
Yeah, yeah.
But for me, I guess it was kind of never, there were times like I told you that I thought like, the highs were very high and the lows were very, very low, man. And I had a lot of really, really bad lows when I thought this was never going to happen.
Mhm.
It was never ever. This is retarded. What am I doing? This is never gonna happen. I'm never gonna work at WET. I'm never gonna work in ILM, or DreamWorks or this or whatever, And I guess the thing looking back that that I think helped me the most was never giving up, never taking no for an answer. In a good way, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go to WET, it's like, no, you're not good enough. It's like, no, I'm ready to do this. Like, no,
I'm gonna do this.
hire me. No, the fact that never taking no for an answer and understanding, and this is what I think what it ties up to. It's like understanding that no now doesn't mean no in the future. Never taking no for an answer means going back and reworking those things that it's like, man, I'm really bad at creature animation. Oh man, I suck. I really suck at this. It's like, exactly, that's what you have to work on, I'm really bad at the technical. I'm really bad at constraints and all that stuff. It's like, well, maybe, look at, there's tutorials about even things we don't know that exist in YouTube, or schools or whatever. So maybe do a lot of that and test it, but you have to be willing to invest the time to get results. So, it's just that I think for me, what allowed me to get to work for ILM, which is where I want to be in the future, is kind of digging down deep and understanding that I don't know everything, and that I was going to have to work very incredibly hard and go to places and do things that other people didn't necessarily have to do because they had the luxury of having the industry in their own backyard countries, and I understood that it wasn't going to be easy. I understood that, but I was willing to make the sacrifice and never give up, and knowing that what I don't know today, tomorrow I will learn. I will know, basically. But there's a process to that, being patient, and I don't know if that answers your question, but I think kind of ties it all together. It's like, the more resilient you are, the further you're going to get in life. And also, you have to be smart and intelligent and like smart and humble, because, this is if you think you're the best, forget it. You're done.
Yeah.
That's it. Ciao. And these studios don't like it's more than anything, it's teamwork. And teamwork is such an important part. It's everything. And if you treat people badly and you get angry and you yell at people, you're not going to last long. So you have to understand it's kind of like, it's like a rare luxury working in these big studios, in ILM, and you don't take it for granted. I never take anything. I think I never took anything for granted. That's the thing, and I knew that like every day could be maybe the last day. So you kind of try and give your best every day, I guess, and then once you get there, you don't just relax. You kind of keep putting a lot of energy and positivity out there. And in the end, good things happen, I think, yeah. But you have to be willing to fail and get to know yourself like you never expected to know yourself in order to achieve the impossible, or what you thought was impossible when you start. If you asked me 20 years ago, my dream was to work for Disney and ILM, and obviously Disney bought ILM, and I work in ILM who work for Disney. I don't work for Disney feature animation. I really want to go that direction, but the decisions, unfortunately, I couldn't go to if you ask me, one of my objectives as an animator would be working on a feature film, which might happen in the future. I don't know, like Pixar, Disney, DreamWorks, all those things. But the decisions that I took, maybe took me further away from that, because that only happened in the States, in the United States. Then in Vancouver was Sony, but when I was in Vancouver, Sony didn't exist in Vancouver. So I necessarily needed to go to the United States to do this, you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, well, unfortunately, that's not going to be a thing. I can still work in animation, like TV shows, and maybe I can create a really good reel that will allow me to get into the, there. And I almost did, to the point where actually I remember I applied to Blue Sky and liked my stuff, but they couldn't sponsor me. They saw potential. I was never the best. I just showed up potential, and a good attitude. And like I say, I'm like, unfortunately, so I had to go the other way. And visual effects was always kind of really, it looked amazing. How can you make these creatures look real enough to interact with, real people? There's that challenge, and that was it. Once you get into VFX animation, I think, that's the challenge. All the hyper reality, all the reality you have to add to these characters, whatever it is, a dinosaur, a transformer, you name it, Gollum, anything you think of, Davy Jones, the big ones, the best ones, they're so real, right? So there's such a big challenge in getting to understand how to make that happen, But I would love to work on a feature, maybe in the future it might happen, who knows, But I dug down very, very, very deep in very, very tough moments, and basically had to be my own best friend and pick myself up when things didn't work out, and that makes you stronger. And I think what makes you stronger, is like, well, I survived this. I can, maybe keep going and see, where that leads me. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
it does.
Anything,
it does. It definitely
I go a long way around the answers.
No, the good thing is, I think that I like of this, that it's not like do that thing like a practical thing and you solve all problems. It's something deeper.
I've seen a bunch of interviews of friends of mine that were, came from Germany or London, and they had mentors very early in their careers. I didn't have that. I never really had a mentor, unless my friend Mike, when I was like 30 something, but I already knew how to animate then, I guess if I would have learned how to, animate the way I know now earlier, maybe things would have been different. But I didn't have the luxury of having a super good mentor in ILM or in Framestore and Weta or whatever. So you kind of, I kind of had to learn from where I could, So yeah, having had the mentor, and would have I understood animation sooner, maybe I would have ended up in ILM sooner, or maybe, who knows?
Who knows?
I would have definitely gotten to the bigger studios sooner. That's what I think would have happened. Yes.
Okay.
So would have I, at one point, if maybe the job at Blue Sky or even DreamWorks worked, I would have gone that route, because I love that kind of animation, I just want to animate well, whatever it is, cartoony or realistic, So once you have the two styles, it's very, very different sensibilities. At the end of the day, it's still animation. So you have to understand the craft well, to be able to apply it to get the final result. So if I would have liked to have maybe click before and not take so long, but everyone has a different experience and route, and we all get there in the end, Yeah.
That's great. Do you have any question? Juani, thank you very much for everything. I mean, that was amazing.
Yeah, hopefully you guys liked it. Like I say, this is my experience, and I probably forgot a lot of things. But that's kind of like my experience, and hopefully it helps people.
It will.
More than anything, like I told you guys earlier, is you have to be, in order to succeed, to achieve goals, you have to get yourself out of the comfort zone. 100%. The sooner you do it, the better.